particular about my time as well. So I am going to put the time as 30 minutes. Nick gave me 45 minutes. I will stop my presentation by 30 minutes, and then we can spend 10 minutes or 15 minutes. If you have any questions, go ahead and put your questions in the chat while I'm speaking. Otherwise, you can ask me the questions later on, and I will make sure I am done in my designated time. So I believe, Mike, you also have some presentation to do right after that. So I'll make sure.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, go ahead.
So I want to make sure I'm very respectful of your time. But more than anything, I'm very thankful that you are all running. I know it is a lot of commitment. Thank you for your time. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Are you able to see this? Okay, yes. Let me make sure it is in the presentation mode, first and foremost. Oh boy. Sorry guys, let me make sure it is in the presentation mode so you can actually see it. Let me see. Okay, let me. Yes, I should have done all of this before I started off. Uh-oh. I can't get to the presentation mode. I'm sure you can still see it.
So I think you'll need to share your screen again because it stopped sharing.
Yeah, I'll do that. I thought I'll start this presentation mode and then start the sharing. All right, guys. So again, I'm Shrili Kapali. So let me, okay. So just kind of want to talk about Fairfax GOP. I've been associated with Fairfax GOP for several years. When I used to present this to the candidates a few years back, I used to start off by saying that, hey guys, we really don't have much of a vision, but gone are those days. I can honestly say that Fairfax GOP at this point does have the vision and the potential and the passionate team. We have recognized, I couldn't say this several years back, or even for that matter, 4 or 5 years back. At this point, the leadership, we have regenerated our leadership team. The leadership team totally recognizes the importance of engaging the immigrants and minority groups. We realize that there is room for us to expand our strategic efforts in this domain. That is precisely, I used to do campaign, not as great as Nick by any means. I think Nick is doing a wonderful job at this. My role used to be campaigns, and I kind of moved on to strategic and engagement because we do see that there is a significant opportunity for growth in this area, especially in Fairfax County. We have the passionate team, as you see, our leadership team like Rosie, Nick, and Steve. All of us are very passionate. And I see Stephen Mosley too in the call. Stephen has been working a lot, trying to reach out to faith-based communities and so on and so forth. So there is talent in the executive team leadership. There is dedication. We are all working as powerful forces trying to kind of engage different communities. Some of the slides I'll go real quickly because I really want to get to the meat of what can, as candidates, you guys do to engage the communities versus just talk about the issues. This is a typical demographics by race. Again, there could be some percentage differences based on 2023, but this is based on 2022. This is Fairfax County demographics. I'm sure your districts, basically, some of your districts may vary a little bit based on where you're running from. This is Fairfax County demographics by race. Right now, white, Asians, and Hispanics, as you can see, Asians are close to 20%, Hispanics are 16%, Blacks are about 9%, and other is 0.5%. Fairfax County is right now the second most racially racially diverse county. And again, this is no news to you guys. If you are in the race, you probably know that this is the most racially diverse county. It's even more important that we engage immigrants and minority population. Only Prince William County is more diverse than Fairfax County in the entire Virginia area. This is based on 2020. So while I ran, I kind of did this and I kind of tweaked this graph based on that. While I ran, I kind of, this is kind of my acronym. This has nothing, even if you Google, you won't find it. This was kind of my acronym kind of to divvy up to see where should I put the most focus in. So if you're a candidate that just jumped into the race and you're like, hey, I don't have much time. If I have to go into these communities, where is the most population and where do I put most effort in? I would say just think about it as Vic's principle in the sense Vietnamese, Indians, Chinese, Koreans, and South Americans, right? If you kind of remember this graph, Asian Indians, these are all thousands, 150,000 or 1,000 population is what you will kind of find in Fairfax County. Koreans, Pakistanis, a lot of folks when I speak to, some candidates are very much into demographics. Some candidates totally understand the demographics of the districts that they're running, whereas some candidates really have no clue. So every candidate is very different. So if you're very familiar with your demographics and you're like, hey, I understand how many Nepalis are in my communities, how many Cambodians are in my communities. I exactly know how many thousands of Thai communities, then please ignore it. But when I speak to some of the candidates, I'm always shocked of how much how much of a demographic, how many people don't understand how much they don't know. So I thought it was important that I kind of throw it out and say that, hey, it's important that you kind of understand and divvy up all of these communities as well. So there are Indonesian population, there are Mongolian population, there are Sri Lankan population, there is Taiwanese population, and so on and so forth. Oh, I hope I can. Okay. So the next slide I want to show is there is, again, Black immigrants as well. In 1970, 1 in 100 Black Americans were immigrants in this country, whereas in 2020, 1 in 9 Black American is an immigrant. The Washington metropolitan area is a major destination for African immigrants. One thing that I also want to point out is in Washington, D.C., African immigrants make up to 14% of immigrants in the Washington. Granted, this is not Fairfax County, and I tried to go into demographics to try to figure out how many people are in Fairfax County, and I couldn't find the data. But this kind of gives you an understanding of how many Black immigrants are in. One of the reasons this is so very important for us to know is Black immigrants don't vote like African American immigrants. And the issues African immigrant voters have is completely different from Black immigrants. Black immigrants vote pretty much like Asians, right? Black immigrants focus on economic opportunities. Black immigrants focus on educational excellence. Black immigrants focus on meritocracy, unlike African Americans. So when you're talking to Black immigrants, we shouldn't be focused on issues of the issues that we focus on African Americans, and also try to kind of understand where Black immigrants are coming from. Like last weekend, I was at an event where there were close to 300 Somalians, and I spoke to tons of Somalian women trying to kind of understand what are their kitchen cabinet issues. I literally was speaking to about 60 Somalian women trying to say, hey, what bothers you about schools? Do you guys understand voting rights? Do you guys understand how taxes are increasing in your neighborhood? What kind of churches do you go to? What kind of mosques do you go to? What kind of political issues Somalians talk about? Because I understand Ethiopian culture very, very well, because I have so many Ethiopian girlfriends, but I don't understand Somalian. So I was trying to kind of understand, what does Somalian women talk about? Because a lot of Somalian men pretty much follow what women tell in their culture as well. So trying to kind of understand their voting patterns is kind of very important, because then you can cater your talking points based on that. So I also kind of want to throw it out about religions in Fairfax County, right? We all understand there are Black Protestants, and so Catholics, and so on and so forth. There is obviously Hindu, Jewish, and Mormon, but there are certain aspects of Buddhist too. So I just really want to kind of throw it out there and say that there are all of these religions in Fairfax County. As you know, it's a very diverse county. And then I kind of want to talk about how do you harness this diversity and how do you unlock the importance of immigrant and minority communities. First, I think it is extremely important that as Fairfax GOP, and not only as Fairfax GOP unit, but as candidates, we strengthen our existing partnerships, because there are two pillars. I say you got to strengthen what we have so we can actually utilize the strength, and we got to strengthen our existing partnerships, but also we need to build new partnerships, because our existing partnerships is definitely not getting us to win. Our existing partnerships is getting us to 30 to 32, or at the most 34%. Even Governor Youngkin was only able to get 30 or 32% in Fairfax County. So we all know that we can't get anywhere with that. Strengthening existing partnerships. Along with strengthening existing partnership, it's important we build new partnerships. When I say strengthening existing partnerships, it's important candidates know that we already have existing partnerships with all of these organizations and many more. It is extremely important that you guys kind of go ahead and start talking to Fairfax GOP leadership and say, hey, I heard that we have an existing partnership with Latino National Republican Coalition. Who is the point of contact there? Who is the point of contact with Chinese American? I don't claim to say I know them all, but I'm sure one of us, if not me, maybe Steve Knott, Chairman Knotts might know. If not Chairman Knotts, probably Rosie Oakley know. Like Amen, American Minority Engagement Network on Tudo is an amazing female. She was super involved in Fairfax GOP. She's now super involved in her own network. Like American Ethiopian Public Affairs Committee, Vice Chair, she invites me to multiple events, and I speak at a lot of Ethiopian events, trying to kind of get them into Fairfax GOP. And they claim to have supported Governor Youngkin to their core last time because of our involvement. So I won't claim to know all the point of contacts, but I know that we already have these existing partnerships. But some of us at least would know one or the other. So I would request all the candidates to kind of take this as points and say, reach out to these individuals and start asking them to either help you guys with door knocking, or ask those people to help you find some fundraisers from their communities and so on and so forth. And then build new partnerships. Don't stop with existing partnerships, because if you just rely on them, you're not going to win, because that is only again going to get us to 32 to 34%. Build new partnerships. Next is, first, I always say, how do we engage Asian voters, right? I mean, if you think about it, I'm not talking about white voters. I'm going to focus on immigrant and minority voters, which is Asian voters first, Hispanic voters, and then we'll get to African-American voters, and then we'll get to Black voters, right? How to engage Asian voters. First, I said, first acknowledge that it is important for us to engage Asian voters. I strongly believe you all acknowledge that. If you didn't acknowledge, you wouldn't sit and spend an hour of your time here. So first, I thank you for acknowledging that it is important that we engage all these voters. Second, I said language. If you're making the flyers, try to make the flyers in different languages, right? I mean, I know our communications chair, Heather, did a great job last time trying to kind of do some of these ballots and stuff in different languages. But as candidates, you can start working and trying to kind of get your campaign campaign flyers in your campaign literature in different language flyers. And we can kind of try to find different volunteers to kind of help you do that. I know last year I was able to find one or two volunteers to kind of translate translate some of the flyers. Again, we can try and find some of those volunteers to translate some of your campaign literature and so on and so forth. I think that's extremely important. And when somebody asked me saying that, hey, should we be translating everything into Hindi? One of the things I usually say is most of our Indian American voters are English speakers, right? So if your funds are limited, go for a language that is that I feel like something like an Arabic or Spanish, because you find those people are some of those people are non-English speakers versus going for a Hindi. Hindi is more of an Indian American language, and most Indian Americans are English speakers. So if your funds are limited, let's pick and choose what language is going to be most used, and then let's try to figure out what different language will kind of get the most out of it. And then cultural competency. One thing I usually say, it's hard to kind of understand every cultural values and norms, but try to get yourself most educated. Again, this is a very diverse population. When I work with candidates, I see most candidates are very culturally sensitive. Most of them work either in State Department, foreign departments. They're very well traveled, but occasionally I do come across some candidates that are not so very well versed in cultural norms. So I usually say, hey, try to understand diverse Asian cultures, values, and norms. And then community outreach. We'll get a lot more into it, partnering with Asian American community. Again, I'll get depth into it. So I'll keep moving on. With regards to issue priorities too, we'll talk about a lot. But with regards to issue priorities, I do want to emphasize about Asian voters, though. Everyone from Asian countries did not escape from communism, because Asia is pretty broad, as you all know. Because every time I take a candidate to some of the Indian American festivals, or if I take them to Pakistani festivals or Bangladeshi, I mean, I've heard them speak a lot to individual voters about communism, and it just, something doesn't make sense. Because I think in some of the candidates' mind, they think that everybody that comes to America is trying to escape something. And I'm like, people come for different reasons. I mean, some people come because they just want better opportunities for their children, or some folks just come for educational purposes. But not everyone is a refugee here. Not everyone is coming trying to escape from communism. Some people just come for better entrepreneurship, right? So it's just trying to kind of understand where they're coming from versus just saying things like, you're a refugee, you must be a refugee. I've heard that from candidates. It might kind of sound surprising, but I've just really heard. So trying to kind of think that Asia is a very large continent. People come from different parts of Asia. Not everybody coming from Asia is escaping from communism. And we'll talk a little more about digital and social media too. Where I say, if you really want to reach minority and immigrant communities, it's extremely important that you're social media savvy, because that is the only way you can spread your message. WhatsApp is widely used within Asian communities. WeChat is widely used within Asian communities. I hear Line is another app that is widely used. I don't use that at all, but I know I use quite a bit of WhatsApp, some WeChat, and some extensively Facebook groups. If you're not in one of these groups, then you're definitely not getting your message out. So think about how to get into these groups and try to spread your message and so on and so forth. We'll talk about voter education, especially if you're not running this year and you plan to run next year, then try to kind of do some voter education within these communities as well, like hosting workshops, webinars. Then people will remember. I do see Fairfax GOP as a unit trying to do voter workshops in near churches. I know Stephen does that, which is kind of amazing, but trying to do that kind of processes, even in Asian communities, will go a long way. And the reason I say that to candidates is candidates participating in that, then people actually do remember. And also when you're engaging Asian voters, talk about GOTV from day one of your campaign, because it is not within Asian communities. They don't think about voting like regular Americans think about, right? So that is not within them. So just start talking about the November date right from the time that you meet with them. So that way it kind of sticks to them. They're hearing it over and over and over again. And again, encourage continuous efforts to build trust. I think that's kind of the norm with every community. And also, this is what I usually see when Democrats are working with their campaigns. I always say, do you have a diverse, while engaging Asian voters, right? Do you have a campaign team that looks like it? Do you have a volunteer team that looks like it? Do you have, do you have, while you're engaging Asian voters, do you have a volunteer team that looks like this? I mean, do you want to make sure if you're door knocking with Asian voter or Asian neighborhood, does your door knockers look like this, right? Try to kind of figure out how do you engage your door knockers that look like this. I'll keep moving on. I'm sorry that my slides are not. Oh yeah, I say engage Asian voters before, during, and after after your campaign. The reason I say is most candidates, I feel like if you run once and you, if you don't win, you kind of disappear, right? I always say that if you have an intention of running again, try to stay within the communities, because I think that kind of trust stays back. And then the more they see you as an ongoing basis, the more they will remember you. So I say, if you have an intention of running the second or the third time or the fourth time, don't disappear, just continue to stay within the community. And they will remember you. Coming back to building partnerships, I think 3 slides back, I said, let's talk about community building, right? Continue to build new partnerships. I say coalition building with other ethnic, racial, and community groups. I say what Muslim Dems do the best, and even the candidates, they collaborate with Jews and Asian Dems, they collaborate with African American groups in schools and colleges. And I think that's what, as unit, we need to do better. As candidates, we need to do better as well. I think we need to kind of think about how do we collaborate with other communities, right? I think that is one thing that I strongly recommend unit chairs and units and also the candidates to do well. If I'm kind of looking at the Dem structure, the way the Dem and candidates, units and the candidates win is they're always collaborating and saying that brown and black are together. So that's just how they've built the strong coalitions, and that's what we are lacking. Again, social media, I'm sorry, I have it a couple of times more. But again, I can't emphasize enough about social media. Like one thing that we tend to, conservatives, I think we are getting better at it, that we don't utilize is LinkedIn. You'll be surprised, even though we call that as a professional networking, there is a lot of political activity also going on LinkedIn. So if you're not on LinkedIn, I would highly recommend that you get on LinkedIn. You directly don't have to post your political messaging, but you can. One of the candidates that I see is effectively using LinkedIn right now is Ed Garcia. He's really developing that momentum. He's not running until next year, but his momentum is really kicking off well on LinkedIn. He knows how to effectively use. So if you're on LinkedIn, check out his LinkedIn profile page. He's definitely making waves there. So I would highly recommend kind of trying to get into LinkedIn as well as a candidate. Now, I think just the general question, you don't have to answer at all. How many candidates have visited a Hindu, Buddhist, Gurudwara, mosque, and so on and so forth? If you have not, please consider visiting them. Every week, I think you should at least pick one of those temples or Buddhist temple. Do not neglect Buddhist temple. I always say, I know that I have taken a lot of candidates to Hindu temples. I kind of pull them. I used to do much better in the previous years. This year, I think I've kind of gotten a little busy and have really not made more of effort. But I will try my very best as kind of campaigns goes in. But even last year when I used to ask candidates, have you been to Buddhist temple? No one seems to have gone. But I think try to make an effort to go to Buddhist temple as well. You'll see a lot of voters you can engage. In United States, we have 2 million registered Buddhists that are not tapped into. One of the reasons I keep saying Buddhist is I worked with I worked with Trump campaign as well, and one of the things that we made an extra effort is trying to tap into those Buddhist voters as well. And I'll continue with engaging Asian voters. I want to make sure I'm not going to. Yeah, so just kind of how do we continue to engage Asian voters? Again, immigration is a big issue for them. I mean, talk to them about immigration, family reunification, employment-based visa programs. Granted, if you're a school board candidate, you kind of wonder, what has this got to do with me? I'm a school board candidate. I'm just going to stick to education. But please understand that when it comes to immigrant and minority voters, I always say they don't care what kind of candidate you are. That's one thing that you need to understand about immigrant and minority. For them, politician is a politician, right? Even if you say, oh, that's not within me. Oh, I'm a congressional candidate. I'm a delegate candidate. I'm a council member. I am this candidate. All they're thinking is that in their mindset, they're like, if I'm thinking about Republicans, they're like, oh, they won't let us get our H-1 visas. So in their mindset, they have certain issues that Republicans continue to block. And that's all they think of. So at least have a general idea of what they're thinking instead of harping on the point saying that, but I'm a school board candidate. I have nothing to do with that. I've heard candidates say that, and I'm like, just address whatever they're saying, just have some remedial points for them. Don't argue saying that, but that has nothing to do with what I'm running for. Because the more you say that, the more you come across as like you don't know what you're saying. So, I mean, I think some of the talking points when you're just striking the conversation saying that, hey, I do believe in employment-based visa programs, because that's one of the things that really is bothersome to Asian voters, saying that they want legal, they believe in legal immigration. They want to have employment-based visa programs. They don't like that there is a cap on those visa programs. They want that expansion on cap-based immigration. You don't need to have the depth of the knowledge, but at least understand that you support the employment-based visa programs. You want to have legal pathways to citizenship. You understand that family reunification. Same thing with education. I think I have no doubt, I won't elaborate on education. You guys are all on board with the education, quality education, meritocracy, and so on and so forth. And you can always say, I do believe in educational equity, but I believe in meritocracy. I think you can use that word, but you again get back to quality education and meritocracy and so on and so forth. You talk about economic opportunity. With regards to healthcare, I think we should always say, yes, I do believe in affordable and quality healthcare, but you just don't believe in Medicaid expansion and so on and so forth. I always say you don't have to take them talking points, but you always can twist and turn and say that you believe that everybody should have an affordable quality healthcare, but there are ways to get there without really expanding and bloating our Medicaid and so on and so forth. I mean, they will talk about civil rights and social justice. Believe it or not, Asian voters, those are. But again, know that this will come up. But it's just a way. But just be prepared to answer those. With regards to our Republican principles. The reason I put it out there is you should be prepared to know what do you answer for them. I mean, Asians are very in tune with geopolitics. That's one thing that I usually say about geopolitics is because diplomatic relationships with Asian countries and trade policies are very important to Asian voters, especially if you're talking to Pakistani folks or Indian American folks, Filipino voters. Right now, yesterday I was talking to Ethiopians and Somalians this weekend. For them, geopolitics are very important. So try to understand human rights concerns, what's happening with Uyghur Muslims. So try to kind of get at least a basic understanding of those, even if not in depth. So that way it will kind of, you can continue to converse with them. If you don't know, then your communication stops right there. So this is, I'm sorry, again, I can't see on the top, I think this is about Hispanic slides. Again, I won't go on and on, but again, they use social media extensively as well. Again, if you're not on social media, you're definitely missing out on a lot of not able to reach out to these voters. Again, some of the things I won't go on and on, but again, immigration, economic opportunities, healthcare, education, try to kind of understand that these are the things that you really need to have at least basic knowledge about when you're talking to them. Again, how to engage African American voters, and then some of those sound like some dumb points, but at least try to understand. Again, as I said, I speak a lot to these people, trying to kind of understand what resonates with them. Oh, social media, another one that Deb Medrell, I bring out Deb Medrell's name here. She's one of our precinct chapter and district chair. I'm not sure if she entered here. She uses Nextdoor app to engage voter. If you're not on Nextdoor app, I highly recommend that you get on Nextdoor app. You don't enter into Nextdoor app trying to engage politics, but you can engage voters like there is no other day. You bring up an issue. It's my understanding that local politics are discussed extensively. Occasionally, I get on Nextdoor app. You can actually zip code and come and narrow down some of your areas next. And I kind of zeroed in on my Nextdoor app, all the issues that are going on in my community and neighboring community. And you can kind of try to understand what your community issues are and try to chime in so your name kind of gets out there. So because at the end of the day, your name matters. The more your name gets out there, the better off you are. So try to get onto Nextdoor app if you're not on there already. Let me also elaborate a little bit about African voters. African voters, too, just like any immigrant and minority voters, engaging local African leaders. Because in our communities, we always have some community leaders. And we are kind of like one of those. We listen to our leaders, right? Because in our cultures, listening to elders, listening to community leaders, listening to those big wigs makes a big difference. So we consider those as elders and influencers. We always have that 40, 50 people. If they tell us, we will listen to them. So try to engage those try to identify who are those local leaders. Like yesterday, when I went to the Somalian, I asked them, I said, who are those 10 people? And they gave me 3 people. One of them was Voice America journalist. And I went and spoke to him and immediately connected through LinkedIn. And I'm meeting with them. I know my time is up, so I'll try to make it quick. So I linked in him and then I messaged him and say, hey, when can I sit with you? And we're meeting for a coffee in 2 weeks or so. So try to kind of engage those kind of, who are those 3 or 4 people in their communities that are influencers? Who are those small business owners that are influencers in those communities? Attend their churches. And I asked them, I said, which one is the church that you guys attend the most? And start kind of going to their churches and mosques. And then again, ethnic voters don't listen to mainstream media channels or communication channels. They have their own African media outlets, which I'll share in the next slides as we go along. So collaborate with those African journalists. Voice of America has a lot of journalists. That is a great resource. From what I understand, I, in fact, have one of the staff therapists that I hire. As I said, I'm a healthcare administrator. One of my staff therapists' spouse also works for Voice of America. Again, he's also from one of the African country, and he also told me of how many hundreds of journalists that work from in Voice of America that have so much influence in the communities in DC metro area. So trying to get on Voice of America is a great way to kind of expand your influence in those ethnic communities. I will not talk about this. I mean, I made these slides in case I have the time, but I don't think I have. It's just basically, why are Dems so popular among young generation immigrants and minorities, which I'm 100% sure you all know because of their policies. But why are Republicans not so popular? But again, as I said, I can't. But your tone on the campaign matters too, right? I always say respectful tone, which I have no doubt you're all professionals you'll use. But sometimes I've kind of seen, I had one of the candidate, unintentionally be very disrespectful, including for my, including me. I like using racial stereotypes. I still remember Nikki Haley just came out and said that, hey, America is not a racist country. Republican Party is not a racist. Here I am, look at me, I'm announcing as 2024 presidential candidate, and Ann Holton comes right at her and say, oh, she's coming from a country where they worship cows and all kinds of nonsense, right? And here we are as immigrants. We are super proud of this country and we make such great remarks, and we have somebody come right behind us and slap us off. So, I mean, that's just one. So these political candidates make mockery mockery out of some of these. So I always say avoid racial stereotypes. Not every African American is looking for handouts. Like I was at a VFRW convention just 2 weekends back, and there were two young ladies trying to talk about youth outreach, and there was one young lady brought up about minority outreach, and just a young lady immediately responded saying that, oh, the reason they won't vote is because they're looking for handouts. I just cringed and walked out. I just didn't know what to tell you, because not all minorities are looking for handouts. Excuse me, I'm right there. I'm the only minority in the room. So it's just, I mean, I think we kind of get really tired of hearing those kind of stereotypes, right? So again, I had I mean, all this happens right in front of me, and we hear that day in and day out, and we just kind of cringe and stuff. So I mean, so I suggest be respectful. I think it just your tone on the campaign matters, because people are hearing stuff. And traditional ways to engage immigrant and minority communities. I think Glenda put out a real. I'm sure Glenda will share with you about festivals, participating in festivals as a campaigner. But I always say, just because we participate doesn't mean that people are going to vote for us. And that's why I say, please participate continuously. Do it before you want to run, during your campaign. And also, if you lose, that's okay. We want you to win. But also, even after, even if you have the intention to run again, continue to be part of it. Be part of community meetings of minority town halls, and be part of chambers of commerce. I mean, Hispanic chambers of commerce or Asian chambers of commerce, or just attend their events, local outreach and door to door. I mean, I can't go into depth, but I'm happy to discuss one-on-one with any of these, like faith-based institutions, like religious schools and universities, like just like Liberty universities. Every faith-based institutions have their own religious schools and universities, like Hindus, we have our own Sunday school. So it doesn't kind of hurt to go there. In Sunday schools, we also do robotics, like mainstream American stuff too. So if you have some of those talents and skills that you want to go and share, feel free to share. Like in our own Hindu temples, we have a Muslim doctor from Afghanistan come in and do healthcare stuff. He's from Afghanistan, so nobody stops anyone. So just kind of doing that interfaith activities totally helps. There is an organization called Seva. We do a lot of charity work. So it's just doing that interfaith work kind of gets your name out there as a campaign activity. There are a lot of civic and social organization within immigrant and minority communities. A couple of social clubs I talk about is not only social clubs, just civic and social organizations. I mean, I just put some, there are hundreds, but I mean, some of the most popular ones that I just put it out there. There is what is called as API, which is American Association of Physicians of Indian Origin. It has about 2,000 physicians of Indian origin just in metropolitan DC area. There is what is called ITSER, which is Information Technology SER, which is all IT companies, entrepreneurs in this area only. I always call them as like big money fundraisers. I tell all Indian candidates or just candidates to just go and seek out and tell them how much you value entrepreneurship, because those are good, big donors for Democrats. I don't see why we won't go in and pitch in and get money from there. There are these volleyball club, cricket clubs. There is Islamic Circle of North America. Their convention happened in Baltimore last weekend, where the entire DMV Muslim community was there. In fact, Abrar, who is a school board member, was speaking. I saw several Dem candidates out there. I couldn't make it, but I saw the speaker list and I was like, boy, so many Dem people. So there are a lot of events happening with regards to immigrant and minority communities. So just kind of being out there can do a lot of good for a unit, as in the Republican units, and also for candidates. I won't go on and on. I think some of them are more of a reputation, tailored messaging, basically customize your campaign. One of the good example I see is Barbara Comstock, Congresswoman, used to do a great job. Every time she put out a flyer, if it is, if she put it in Korean language, she made sure she took a picture with a Korean kid with their outfit, like how Governor Youngkin and Susan Youngkin put out a picture, Asian Chamber of Commerce. I was at their executive mansion with Asian Islander Month, but they decided to put out a picture where there were people with only traditional clothes, which I thought was a very smart strategy, right? So if you're putting out some pictures, put out with ethnic community folks and stuff, because you're catering your message, I think that makes a big difference. Again, non-traditional way is all of this, doing virtual events, Facebook Lives. I mean, I know I used to do conversations that count podcasts. I hope to resume that at certain point, doing a lot of Facebook Lives. As I said, again, we are all hooked up to social media, especially Asian community folks, immigrant and minority. Don't expect them to come to meet and greets and stuff. As you can see, in a full of meet and greets that you guys hold, probably 90% of our own people, over and over again, you see the same people come in. You barely see outside folks. However, if you put Facebook Live and you do a webinar, you may see a different people. And then doing webinars and different stuff. I mean, you all are such educated, such full of knowledge. I mean, if you are from defense industry, putting a webinar out about defense industry, I know that one of our a GOP member had done a seminar on Second Amendment, where a lot of Asian immigrants were curious about how Second Amendment works, and they just joined the call. So trying to kind of think about different topics that would interest immigrant communities, and trying to do some digital storytelling and multilingual podcasts and video content and so on and so forth. I just kind of put a picture saying that these are all the ways to kind of involve them. And again, non-traditional ways are online surveys. Like occasionally, I'm not too popular on Twitter by any means. I can say that I'm very good at Twitter, but occasionally I do put out some surveys and stuff on Twitter. So engaging people on Twitter and influencers, trying to figure out who are those influencers and bloggers in these immigrant communities, and trying to engage them and trying to ask them to interview you would go a long way as well. Again, as I said, this is all social media. That's where you find these immigrant and minority communities. And if you have political interns from Liberty universities, try to engage them as well, from George Mason universities. And if they are from minority communities, grab them. Try to grab them and see if they can do some social media management for you, some email marketing, online advertisement. I mean, these are all another way. Data analytics now, everything is about data analytics. I know when Winsome Sears and those lieutenant governor and all were doing, I had one of the candidate, I can't tell the name, but send me 6,000 Hindu names and asked me to make those calls. So I was able to make those calls for them. I know, Nick, I'm running out of time. So I say, what is ethnic media, right? I say 1 in 5 adults in the United States uses ethnic media. According to New American Media, they provide a window. So use ethnic media. These are all local ethnic media outlets. So if you have the money, put in the ethnic media outlets instead of in the mainstream. I'm not saying you don't want to use mainstream, but there are ethnic media outlets. I personally use very little mainstream media. I listen to ethnic media the most. There are tons of ethnic media, and they're actually extremely reasonable. These are all different ethnic media. That's where most of the ethnic communities go to listen. Hispanic media outlets. All these are African-American news providers. These are all local ones. Again, on and on, miscellaneous strategies. Have surrogate speakers. You need not be everywhere. You can't be everywhere. Partner with Women's Club. I'm very biased because I am the president of Liberty Republican Women's. I'm on the board of VFRW, which is Virginia Federation Women. So partner with Women's Club, use them, use their talent. Again, key takeaways are tailor your messages, know about what immigration policies are, just what matters to them, and just have diverse representation within your campaign and long-term engagement. Don't stop with this campaign, keep engaging the voters. Thank you for your time. I know that was a little rushed up, but I hope you find something valuable here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Sheree. Really appreciate that. I think the thing to remember in engaging any community is just like if we had a stranger that we didn't know or we'd never spoken to that showed up at a FCRC meeting and decided to engage with all of us and just showed up and says, you don't know me and you don't know what I stand for, just trust me and go do what I'm telling you to, and in this case, voting for you perhaps. All of these different communities of interest, however they're built up, are different communities that need to be engaged with over the long term. And we have to build trust, organizationally, but also as individual candidates. It takes a long time to continue to kind of just continuously beat that drum and engage and continue to carry your message and introduce yourself and build up those relationships, because it's all about the relationships in the end. So really quickly before we pivot over to Mr. Ginsburg, do we have any questions? I saw quite a few comments flying through in the chat window, as well as several thank yous. Do we have any questions real quick before we pivot on to our next presentation?
I do have a quick question. I
two
put it
questions
in the chat.
I'm sorry, go on, Kristen, sorry.
Oh, okay. When you were talking about white voters being approximately 50% or just under 50% in Fairfax County, did that also include some of the, I'm assuming it did, some of the ethnic groups such as Ukrainians, because we have a lot of Ukrainian population, Russian population. Do Iraqis and Iran and Persians also come under the white, or are those in a different group? And if so, is there a way to quantify and identify where we could reach out to those separate groups as well to appeal more to their specific interests?
I think those are all under, white is just Caucasian.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that is just Caucasian. I might be wrong, but anybody else know? I think.
And is it worth to kind of break those into some subgroups?
Yeah, Kristen's right. Ukrainians, for example, would be considered white. They're not a separate ethnic group. So immigrants from Eastern Europe and so forth would be just in the white category.
Mm-hmm.
I had some questions in the chat. Maybe Ms. Polly wants to answer them privately to me if we don't want to take time. Or send it to her directly, I think. But you don't want to. You've already talked about the issues. You put that on the slide. I asked that question before you put that slide up about what would be the issues of most appealing to the Latino community, and what issues should I stay away from? Hello? I guess you can't hear me.
I'm sorry, can you?
I can sort of address that. You have to break the Latinos into two groups, and you have completely separate messaging for each of the two groups. The first group is the homeowners, and then the second group is everyone else. And so your messaging to the one group is very much similar to your regular messaging. Your messaging to the non-homeowners is going to be a little bit different. I hope that helps.
Ms. Polly, do you agree with that?
I do, 100%.
So what issues are you talking about in the state race then?
I'm sorry, I just got a little distracted here. I was just looking at, I hope I didn't say your name wrong, Nihar. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I was just answering this question.
Well, my question is, what are the issues that are concerned to people in apartments versus houses in the Latino community? Can she hear me? Maybe she
No,
can't.
I am sorry, Ken. I can hear you. I was just downloading the entire chat so I can go back and respond to you.
Oh, okay.
One after another. I'm sorry.
Well, don't let me take the time. Why don't you just answer those questions to me?
Yeah,
offline,
yeah, exactly. Let
email.
me download everything and I'll get back to you.
Okay, yeah, or just download it by email.
Okay. Well, Nan, I think you've got a question, and Srileka, if you'd like me to, if it's easier for you, I'm happy to add you to the Basecamp group for candidates as well. And if you want to splash some answers up there, if that's easier for you to do it in a consolidated spot, I can do that for you right now while you answer his questions. So, Nan?
That would be great, Nick. I'm not able to download. I didn't want to neglect Ken's question. He had two good questions. I was just trying to download that so I don't miss them. And I also wanted to make sure I connect because we are going to have some Buddhist conference. I didn't want to miss, I'm not getting his name right. So I want to make sure I connect with Nan later on for that Buddhist conference. We're going to have a good convention. I wanted to invite him. So I was just writing down everything.
Yes, Shri. And I don't know if you remember me. I went to your house at with the Hong Kong campaign. Yes, and your daughter went to TJ. I'm also a TJ alumni. My son's also a TJ. But I think he's gonna go to Centerville. But my district is, I think your house is just. Daddy have a meeting, okay? Yeah, my district, I think your house is right at the edge. I don't know if you are going to be in my district. It's gonna be District 9, House of Delegates. That covers Centerville and Chantilly. But I think it covers part of the Stringfellow Road and the Route 50. But anyway, we'll check on that later. My question is obviously the South Asians, which you are, is the biggest Asian group subgroup there is, and they historically have voted 70% Democrats. So if I'm gonna win it, even though my district is 30% Asians, 45% white, 30% Asians, with South Asians, Koreans, and Vietnamese are the largest. But that 70% of South Asians voting Democrats is a big hurdle. It doesn't seem like the South Asians would be swing voters, whereas other Asian groups tend to be. So, what are your thoughts on that?
So we can talk offline. I know we are running out of time, but I always say Asians will vote for Asians. If you go and ask for it, Republicans never asked for it. I say if we do a good job of asking them to vote for us, they will. And representation matters. If you have the representation and we seek out, they will vote for us because the values are there. Yeah, we just need to do a good job of asking them to vote for us.
Okay, so have you ever seen that they've swayed, instead of 70-30, that, you think we are able to get like a 50-50 out of them?
That's a goal. That is the goal.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much, Nan. Arthur, we're gonna end with you, and then for everybody else's benefit, I've added Ms. Pally to our base camp group for in the all candidates group. So if you've got any additional questions, or we're going to keep this conversation going, feel free to go ahead and share a post there, and we can kind of go back and forth and make sure we're sharing the knowledge for everybody's benefit offline. So Arthur, why don't you bring us on there?
Thanks. I believe, or I've been assuming that the top issues were public safety, declining achievement in public schools, and taxes. How valid is that across all of these different groups, Shrelika?
I'm sorry, Arthur. I just checked out myself. I have to get into another call, so I checked out myself. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Okay. So I have assumed that the lead issues are public safety, declining achievement in schools, and taxes. How valid assumption is that across these different ethnic groups?
Oh, 100%. Those are major issues. I mean, with public safety, I'll tell you, even I brought it to AG Mayor's attention, two major public safety issues where there was a diamond trade issue, diamond store trade issues where things got stolen and so on and so forth. It was just an awakening call in our own community saying that, oh boy, this could even happen in our own communities and stuff. So that's a major issue. And TJ has become a big issue. As long as we kind of stick to the matter, I think I always tell people saying that stick to the issue. Don't mince it with communal religion and so on and so forth. Stick to the issue. I think as long as we stick to the issues, but those three are huge, huge issues for us, for all ethnic communities.
All right, well,
Thank you.
Jalika, thank you so much again for joining us, and thank you for taking the time and sharing your knowledge with us. If you'd like for me to, I'm happy to take those slides if you'd like for me to and load them up to the Basecamp group, or you can feel free to go do so if you want to. This Zoom call will be loaded up there as well. And again, feel free. Shrika is in that group now, so feel free to ask these questions and keep this conversation going. So thank you again for your time and sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. Okay, and now we're going to go to Mike Ginsburg. So just put yourselves in sort of a mental mindset of continuing the conversation that we've had. 2 trainings ago, we started talking about Facebook and digital conversations. Last training, we started talking about further, how do we begin to place ads? How do we take that conversation further? How do we start to do some media outreach? We've had Nathan talk to us about some traditional media outreach. Mike is going to take that conversation a little bit further with us and some of those engagement opportunities. And in particular, Mike has developed sort of a way with being the master of all things op-ed and identifying good surrogates and carrying the conversation forward within the community. So I'm going to turn it over to him now.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to see so many people, running for office and attending all these trainings. Thanks to Nick for putting these together. I think this has been just a very valuable endeavor in trying to get everybody trained up and really prepared for these campaigns that are so important this fall. And thanks to all of you. I think Shalika mentioned it at the beginning, but I know how much time and effort and work and treasure and sweat goes into a campaign. So my hat is off to you, and we are all grateful for the fact that you are running and putting yourself out there and doing the hard work of carrying the Republican banner this fall. So I wanted to start with all of that. I'm Mike Ginsburg. I am the chairman of the 11th Congressional District Committee, which is the Republican Party of Virginia has district committee in every congressional district, and each committee has a chair, and I'm the chair of that committee, and we sit on the State Central Committee and the Executive Committee of the State Party and all these other things. But my interests and my heart has always been in the local area and doing things, on the ground as a committee, trying to do things to better the district and to be very active and very supportive of candidates. And that has to be the highest priority, is helping our candidates win. And Shalika did a very good job of talking about how we build credibility and build our efforts within the various communities that comprise Fairfax County, 11th Congressional District, and so forth. And what I think I'm going to talk about here is how do we build our name ID in another way? And that is in developing an issue base and topics, and developing your name ID through making yourself known on the issues that you care most about, the things that have motivated you to run. And op-eds, writing op-eds in the various channels that exist, is a really good way to do that. One of the challenges, of course, as a candidate, particularly a first-time candidate, is building your name ID. Unless you've been active in the community in a lot of ways, or you have already built up a following through your business activities or your volunteer activities or other things, you really need to build your name ID. You need people to get to know who you are, what you stand for, why you're running, and what you'll do if you're an elected official. And an op-ed is a really good opportunity to do that. It's an opportunity to show that you know your stuff, your substantive stuff. It's an opportunity to show that to speak with your own voice rather than to be characterized by your opponents and the media and local Democrats who are usually very hostile and also keen to mischaracterize you. And it's also an opportunity to build your name ID. The more you write, the more you get out there, the more your name appears in print and online, the more people will recognize you when they see your sign in somebody's yard. They get a flyer that when you knock on their door, they've seen your articles in whatever venue you've chosen to write in. So I am a big proponent of making that a component of your campaign, op-eds. How do you do it? What should you be doing? How should you go about doing it? Well, first, look at the different venues that exist. There are a lot of local publications that we have worked with some of them. Others, we haven't worked as closely with, but are still out there and that people read. The Fairfax Times is one that I write in a lot, and they are very friendly to us, and they're very willing to accept our op-eds. And so if you Google my name and you Google Fairfax Times, you'll find a bunch of things that I've written in the past on school issues, on Connolly issues, Jerry Connolly, various things, and so forth. There are other venues. There's the connection papers, the patch. Every venue, every sort of community has the patch.com. And to figure out how you would do it, like I said, we have a relationship with the Fairfax Times, so we can email them directly. But you can also just go online to these different sites. Patch.com, I think is one. I think that's their website. But you Google, the McLean patch or the Fairfax patch or the Reston patch, and you'll see there it is. And you can see about submitting things there. And same with the connection. There's a McLean connection, and Arlington has a connection, and all these different committees have the connection newspapers, and they will accept op-eds as well. So just go to their page and see what the rules are for submitting an op-ed. They'll usually have a length requirement. They'll have a topic, suggested topic types, and so forth. And of course, I don't mean to leave out the big guns, right? There's the Washington Examiner, which is read very much in Fairfax County. There's the Washington Post, which, they may or may not run it, but they have an op-ed page that you can write to. We have had folks who have written on school board issue matters in the past. There's the Washington Times. They are, a little bit more friendly outlet, and they will run things as well. And you go to their pages on opinions, they'll all say, here are the ground rules, here are the guidelines. There are also conservative publications. The Federalist is one, and they have you can go to their website, you can see what their policies are on the op-eds, or the Post. They're all op-eds, so the requirements for what they want, like topics, etc. There's the American Spectator. They have an online site. They'll post things as well. There are local blogs, right? There's Bearing Drift, which is a conservative blog that people read. Bacon's Rebellion. They will accept things. Sean Kenny, former executive director of the RPD, he has a blog. He'll accept guest posts as well. So there are a lot of different venues, and I really encourage folks to write in the venues that aren't necessarily just Republicans, right? I mean, we send emails to each other. We write op-eds in a conservative blog, and all our friends will see it, and all the people that are on our team will see it. But one of the benefits of submitting to something like the Fairfax Times is that they have a circulation. They have a print version and an online version, and that goes to houses beyond just sort of the usual conservative Republican suspects. So it's an opportunity for you to get in front of people you might not ordinarily get in front of. So those are the different kind of venues that you could consider writing for. And I'm happy to sort of talk to folks and help work through finding the right place for things. Second thing is, what do you want to write about? If you have a sort of a campaign theme, something has animated, something has motivated you to run for office. Those are important things. You can probably speak very passionately about those issues, those couple of issues that really said, I got to run. So I know, for example, Tony Sabia, he's on this call, and I know he's mentioned several times, school safety is a big animating theme of his campaign. Well, maybe an op-ed on SROs in schools, why they're a benefit, why they're a good idea, why we should maintain it, just off the top of my head. But those are the sorts of things that you might want to think about. What do I care about? What should the community care about? And what is it that you want to talk about? Also wanted to pay attention to what others are doing. So if your opponent says something that's off the wall or plain wrong, or the school board says something that's bad or plain wrong, and you want to make the case for the opposite position, a response to something that happened in a school board meeting, something that your opponent said, is also very good. And Fairfax Times has done that for me. I've responded to things that Connolly has said that I think are off the wall. That's another great hook for an op-ed to not only characterize yourself, but also to point out the flaws in your opponent. So always be paying attention to what your opponent is saying and what your opponent's campaign is saying, what they're saying on Twitter, what they're saying on in public to the media, what they're publishing. If they publish something and you want to respond to it, that's another great opportunity hook. And also, the third thing that you want to include in that is being able to blow your own horn. Politics is not for the bashful or the modest. If you have done something to better a particular problem, I know, for example, Deborah Tisler has talked about her work. She's running for the school board. She's done a lot of work on special ed issues, particularly in the wake of the pandemic. And she has a great story. You have a story to tell about things you've done in a community. You can talk about the problem that you identified. Maybe it's still a problem, and you can talk about how you've done X to solve it, and here's why more that we need to do to solve the problem. But that again is something that is very valuable. It introduces you to the community as a doer. You show that you're a doer. I've done this much. Here's what we need to do to fix the problem. And if you elect me, I'll cover that. Most op-eds are between 500 and 1,000 words long. So when you write yourself an op-ed, sorry, just starting to see some questions. But when you write an op-ed, you want it to be short and you want it to be fairly pithy. You want to get right to it. You don't want it to be, a lot of wind up and not much pitch. You get right to the pitch. You get right into the issue that you're talking about. Why, whatever it is you want to say it right away. If you're challenging someone, go ahead and challenge them right away and make your contrast quick. Humor is fine. I mean, you can use a little humor or some barbed comments, make it punchy. You want it to be a little bit, entertaining, but be careful. You don't want, humor can be a little dangerous. So you want to use it, fairly, wisely and carefully, but sharp little barbs, can make an op-ed go from just sort of a dry recitation of facts and policy positions to, a little bit of an entertaining read for people who read these sorts of things. So think about that as well. Develop a little bit of a style. And that's something, I think our team, the various folks who are helping candidates prepare for the campaign and prepare op-eds, we'd be happy to look at, draft op-eds, things like that, to punch them up, make them, very, very good. And I think it's actually a very good idea. If you do write an op-ed, have somebody. If it's not one of us, have a friend, have a mentor, have a member of your kitchen cabinet. If you have a few people that are advising you on your campaign, have somebody look at it, because that way you'll be sure, okay, there's nothing in here I'm going to be sorry for, or nothing in here that's confusing or could be taken the wrong way or taken out of context. And I get my point across and it's a good option. So you want to get the feedback from some sort of, neutral third party that can give you fair and honest criticism. So that's another thing to keep in mind as you draft these. And, I'm willing to help with that. Others are willing to help with that, I'm sure. And keep that resource in mind. The other thing is tempo. You don't want to just be one and done. You want to try to write a few of these over the course of the year. And what does that mean? Well, that means you don't want to shoot everything, shoot all your bullets in one op-ed. If you have 3 or 4 things you want to talk about, spread it out. Write 3 or 4 things, separate pieces. It's sometimes it's hard to come up with material. So if you've got a lot of material, don't use it all up in one sitting. Spread them out and kind of have a flow to it. In fact, if you want to write sort of a series of these things, if you say, for example, you could talk to the Fairfax Times folks and say, I'd like to do a series of articles on X. They might be open to doing something like that. So it's worth a shot, certainly worth doing that. I see a question from Ken, email to use for Heather Zwicker. I have Heather Zwicker's email. She's usually pretty good. If she says she has no space, for one thing, it's there. She has 2 versions. The Fairfax Times has both an online version and a print version. So you can always, usually I've never had her say, you can't, there's no room for something in the online version. There might be no room in the print version. The print version comes out, I believe, every Friday, whereas the online is a quicker turnover. So if you have something that's sort of very time sensitive, you want to get it out right away, you just put it online, have her or ask her to put it online. If you're, it's not less time sensitive and you would like it to be in the print version as well as online, you'd have to wait till the Friday that she would run it. But it is, you do have that broader circulation for the folks that do read the print version. So pros and cons, but I can send you the email. Heather Zwicker, if you haven't done this, Heather Zwicker is the editor of the Fairfax Times. So she's the one that I always work with very closely to get these things posted. And like I say, I've never had any, something where she didn't have any room. There have been times where, the subject matter isn't quite right for the Fairfax Times, and that'll happen too. Somebody will say,
Well, Mike, she didn't give me the option to have it just online.
Well, she's always given me that option.
Okay.
Yeah, that you could
So
ask.
she's the person we should be emailing. Okay.
Yeah, Heather Zwicker is the editor in chief of the Fairfax Times. So she's the one I. And if she did not offer you that option, ask her about it.
Okay, I thought I did.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm surprised, but that maybe it's communication, whatever. But yeah,
Well, I wanted to do a story on it because, the common sense slate there of Jack Peterson and Ed Nuttall and Stacey Kincaid are running ads on Fox News, and they up until today they were not telling people it was the vote in the Democratic primary. They just changed their disclaimer because for weeks now they were just saying vote in the June 20th primary.
Right.
And Peterson's paying for these ads, and they're on Fox Business and Fox News. They're also putting them on CNN.
Yeah, I've seen them. I've seen them.
Yeah. So
yeah, no, if you want,
I'm getting ready to alert voters through a direct mail piece that I'm the Republican running in. Vote for me in the fall. Don't vote in that primary, except for Kamala.
Right. Yeah. No. That's yeah. So I guess the other thing is that she may, and I've never done this because I've never sort of had I've always been sort of a substance issue. It's always been some substantive policy issue that the op-eds are on. And less sort of a straight political thing. But I would go back to her and ask her if she can run it on. So I guess so that again is something that can help with. Fairfax County Republican Committee also has media folks that know this area and can help with placing of op-eds. But yeah, I mean, and once you get it placed, I guess that would be the next thing. And look, don't feel free to aim high, right? Go for the Washington Times, go for the Washington Post. The worst thing I can say is no. Shoot for the Examiner. I've had a piece run in the Examiner. Those are read by people in Fairfax County. So by all means, if you think you got a really good piece and you want it, really broad circulation, shoot for one of those. And shoot for multiple outlets. Go for a couple in the Fairfax Times, a couple here, a couple there, because they have different readerships, and you want to get your name out, among a broad readership. Once you do have something published, you've got in, you're excited, blast it out to the four corners of the earth using, all your avenues. Send around an email saying, "Look at my op-ed in the Fairfax Times." Post it on Facebook, post it on Twitter, post it anywhere you possibly can. And the other thing you'll want to have is have a posse of folks who can boost it for you. So that when you send them, "Hey, I've got this email or I've got this op-ed in today's Fairfax Times," they'll send it to 20 of their friends, and they'll send it to 20 of their friends. So you sort of organically boost the viewership of your op-ed, including the people who might be persuadable, might not be hardcore Republicans who already know you and already voting for you. So that is another thing. Make sure that once you have gotten something published, take full advantage of it, because that will show that you're a very serious candidate. You're a serious thinker about the issues, that you have a serious platform, and that people who are donating to your campaign are getting their money's worth. They're getting bang for their buck, because you are raising the flag and you are taking it to the Democrats, and you are making our policy points. You're doing it in print, and you're doing it in a really strong, emphatic, and very strategic way. So when you send around that op-ed, make sure at the bottom you have, "Oh, by the way, if you want more of these, donate to my campaign." But do take advantage of that, because it does show seriousness of purpose, which I think voters like to see from their candidates. And I guess the last thing I would say is don't.
Mike, can I mention your name to her next time I submit it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Help?
If it helps, whatever I can do to help, I'm glad to. So
All right, I'll tell him Mike Ginsburg said I shouldn't talk to you.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess if there's confusion or what have you as to how to place it, but you can certainly mention, for example, that Mike said there's an online option.
Mike said you're a great gal.
You can say that too. She really is a friend. I mean, I will say that she is very much a friend of our party. She's run a lot of stuff, not just me, but she's been very big on the education issues. Azra Nomani has had a lot of pieces in there on the TJ matters. She very much is and to be honest, I'm not sure precisely what her politics are, but she very much is someone who is open to the things that we have to say and very glad to publish them. So that's why it's a great resource, and it's got a pretty wide circulation. So that's a good thing as well. Trying to think of anything else that I haven't covered. I think those are most of the things that I've covered. But I guess sort of the last thing I would say is don't feel shy. This is an opportunity to punch the Democrats and to punch punch against the things that they're doing, and you can do it in a sort of a very harsh but controlled way. If you have an issue that you care about, you can make it clear that you care about it. You can make clear why the Democrats are just off their meds on the particular issue. issue. And you don't have to worry about having to respond to what they're going to say, because it's going to come 2 days or 3 days later. So, let it out, let it go. It's really an opportunity to put your best foot forward in a way that is unfiltered, and it's not going to be subject to immediate rebuttal or something like that. So I guess those are sort of the big points that I would leave you with. And if there's, I don't think I have any other additional points. So if folks have any questions, glad to take them.
Well, I guess just one thing I'd add real quick before we jump to
Sure.
questions, Mike,
Yeah.
is if you all have an issue that you think is particularly controversial, I don't know what it is. Vouchers for school, like whatever. Pick a random topic, something that you think's super controversial, and you just want to see it floated out there so that it's a conversation starter on the campaign. But you don't necessarily want to attach your name to it for whatever reason. I'd suggest floating that over as well. If you get something drafted that you'd want to throw over there, we can certainly find someone who's either a policy expert in that area to give you some help on it, or to even attach their name to it and say, okay, well, I'll submit it under my name, and we'll throw it out there, and you can blame me and say, it's no, it's that whack job, Mike Ginsburg with his crazy ideas for school vouchers that are out there, or Nick Anderson, who thinks the road should be made out of Jello from now on because it's more sustainable. I don't know, but whatever it is that's out there, that's the policy ideas that you want to float. We can either help to find people that are SMEs in those areas to be like surrogates to say, look, like if it's an environmental issue, Scott Cameron has served on the the Soil and Water Board, and he served in the Department of Interior, and he's doing all sorts of other great things with other groups. We're going to grab Scott Cameron, get him to attach his name to an op-ed, see if he can get something submitted to help raise the conversation in a way where you can point to it and say, I think this guy's got some great ideas. And further, here are points 1, 2, and 3 that I would take on if elected. Use this as an opportunity to kind of get the surrogates and get the network of Republicans working alongside you. So that you can take the conversation even further, or you can kind of see how it plays. So those are other opportunities as well. And again, sending things to me or to Mike or to people like that, or to Heather Cadell, if you're thinking about submitting op-eds, so we can take a look at them and help you proofread or offer an opinion. Those are certainly things that we're happy to do. We'll flip to some questions real quick. Arthur, you got your hand up?
Yeah, no, I just like to say we're hearing from an expert. And if you want to see great examples of op-ed pieces, Google up Mike's op-eds in the Fairfax Times.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you. And coming from Arthur, who is he's a SME in his own right, especially on budget matters. He definitely. I don't want to put. I'm throwing work onto poor Arthur's plate, but if you need questions or things answered about the budget, it's hard to find somebody better than Arthur for those matters. No questions. That's everything. Thank you all for being here again. Again, really do appreciate your support of the party. If there's anything you think of or questions you have later, don't be strangers. Glad to help in any way.
All right. Thank you again, Mike. We really appreciate your time and your expertise and sharing your knowledge with the group. I'm sure you'll be hearing from some of these folks as they start putting pen to paper and lobbing those ideas over at Fairfax Times and everywhere else. All right, we're going to pivot to the third leg here of our training for this evening. We're going to go over to Mr. Wilcox, who's going to talk to us about fundraising for a bit, and this is going to be the final element of our training this evening. So we'll do questions, and then we'll get ready to break. So over to you, Ron.
Okay, I will be somewhat brief because I'm standing in the way of the adjournment of this meeting, and we've been here a long time. I guess I'd like to start off commending Cassandra Aucoin, because on May 13th, she mailed a handwritten letter asking for funds. Okay. My mailbox is not full of these letters. Obviously, she got some envelopes she had. She got a rubber stamp, stamped her address in the corner, and wrote a letter to everyone that she thought might donate to her campaign. Now, I'm sad because my mailbox is not full of these. Every member of county committee is entitled to the names and addresses of the county committee members. And that's a great place to mine for donations. And in fact, you can go to VPAP, you have the list, you don't start on VPAP, you go to VPAP, Virginia Public Access Project, vpap.org, and you can look up the donor history of every single member of Fairfax County Republican Committee. And you can determine their donation level. And my pet peeve is when I look at those donation levels, you'll see that a donor has donated $250, $250, $250, $250, $250, $200. Now, somebody did not look at the history and just asked for $200 and then left $50 on the table. So this idea of really caring so much that you'll print out on your little printer at home, a one-page, two-sided letter, one sheet, two sides, and mail it to everyone you think will donate is a terrific idea. Cassandra, can you tell me how this fund appeal did?
Yeah, it did okay. I mean, but I certainly covered all the costs. That's the most important thing. But yes, I did pretty well, and I didn't go after huge donations. I went after some reasonable ones for this time around. But yes, it worked out pretty well.
So now Cassandra has something very special. She has a donor list. Now she can go back to each and every single person instead of going to the large list that she went to, because she probably didn't know if everyone would donate or not. Now she has a list of her own donors, people that donate to the brand Cassandra Aucoin. And I think that you need to take your donor list, whatever list you have, and you need to ask them 3 different ways, 3 times a month, or four ways: phone call, email, a direct mail piece, Facebook, different ways, so that your donor won't mind you asking 3 different ways, 3 or 4 different ways in a month. But you never know when people get paid, and never know when they have money. Some people get it regularly, some people get it regularly. So a lot of times when you send out fund appeals, it's just not a good time for the donor. It doesn't mean they don't believe in your cause, but you got beat out this time maybe by the Little Sisters of the Poor, which is my point, that if you do not ask your donors for the donation often enough, they have their donation budget and they will stick to it. And they will say, okay, well, I didn't hear from Cassandra yet, so I think I'll donate to the Little Sisters of the Poor because I got a nice fund appeal from them and that they've got some project that is worthy of funding. So they donate the money. So you missed out. Okay. So you have to really chase your donors. And I mean, in a very respectful way. Often the second outreach might be a thank you note, handwritten thank you note. Especially at the lower levels, every donor should get a handwritten thank you note. Pretty soon after they donated, and then followed by a phone call. I just wanted to thank you so much for trusting in me to donate money to my campaign, because people have a lot of places they can put money other than donating to your campaign. And these campaigns are not, the school board candidates don't have the advantage of the developer money because they're not involved in zoning. So the school board candidates have to work so much harder than everyone else. sheriff, anything that's not zoning, soil and water conservation. And the other side does have money and they have earned media. So we got to work extra hard to have money for our social media budgets in asking the people that will give us money. Now, the first thing you should do, if you haven't done it yet, is get your pen and paper out and get a notepad, a fresh, clean, beautiful notepad, and write down every person you know that might and who you have ever known that might donate to your campaign, your alumni lists, all of these things. And you know, they say the average congressional candidate might have $100,000 or $200,000 in those contacts, but a lot of people are embarrassed to ask their friends, the people and their family. The people who are just most inclined to donate, they don't want to. Oh, we don't want to feel needy. Okay, look, what you're doing is so important. You have to take and put yourself aside. Get out of the mindset that I don't like fundraising, I don't believe in it, whatever it is. Put yourself aside and say, what I'm doing is so important, I'm going to do a lot of what I hate, which is asking for money. You have to, that will prove to me that you really believe in your cause. If you say, I hate fundraising, everyone hates asking for money. But I'm telling you, the first time that someone strokes a $5,000 check for your campaign, you have no idea the feeling that you get of accomplishment, and what a joy it is that someone believes in you so much that they would take from their treasure and donate to you. So even the small start like this shows me that Cassandra is worthy of a donation. And so I just give my gold star today to Cassandra. Not to single her out, but I should have gotten several of these in the mail by now. Anyway, I think we're going long and people are dropping out. So I don't want to take much more of your time except just to encourage everyone to ask. And, you know, I know it's painful, hard, difficult, but make the ask. Okay, this was Fundraising 101. Any questions? No one has questions.
Ed, do you have one? It looks like he came off mute.
Questions?
No, still formulating.
Still formulating your
Yeah,
question.
Well, I'm gonna say, how does it stand with PAX? Is everybody still focused on June 20th at this point? You know, are we gonna get talking to anybody at the state or?
I think that there's no obstacle to fundraising right now for races. If you're the nominee, you know, that's all that people matter. You know, maybe there's a formal date when you receive the nomination or whatever it is. But I think that I would not put any artificial barriers in front of the ask. And the most effective thing is your phone calls, telephone calls, and personal ask. There are ways of having people help you raise money, but all of them involve making the ask. Mike Ginsburg will go to his favorite donors and say, hey, can you donate to so-and-so? Well, can I meet him? And then they'll want you to make the ask. Is that right? Do you agree with that, Mike?
Yeah, no, I do. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would be so excited about what you're doing, even if you're doing a pinning campaign, because even pinning campaigns are expensive. If you're trying to pin the Democrat in place, my estimate this year for a pinning campaign, for I'm not talking about school board, But a pinning campaign in the state legislature, my estimate for a effective pinning campaign is $10,000. If you want a shadow campaign, it's about $4,000. Because you got to do a lot of things to make them believe that you're a threat. And your mere existence is not that much of a threat. I don't mean you personally, I mean every one of you. And I don't let that dollar figure startle you. You know, if you get a couple large donations, you know, $1,000 or $2,000, you can make up ground pretty fast. And by the way, I personally raise money all year round. And my most recent raise was a meeting with a donor who donated $7,000. That was last month. We'll see about next month. So it's about contacts, but it's more, are you willing to reach out to your friends and family and make the ask and look for people that make donations. And you can take your list, and as I said, you can screen it on VPAP and you can find out what to ask for. Please don't ask for $200 if they regularly donate $250. Don't be that guy, because you leave money on the table. Oh, by the way, just for techniques, the techniques that work for the large small donors, $25, $50, $100 donors, also work for higher dollar donors. You know, $500, $1,000, $5,000. Anyway, any more questions?
Yeah, I think it's more than $10,000 in the delegate race.
No, I said a pinning race.
Yeah, pinning race, yeah.
A pinning race, meaning the least you can spend and make them think you're a threat. You should be raising $50,000 or on up for a seriously contested. I don't know the exact budget, but $50,000 or $100,000 would not be too far off, I think.
Probably up the way they spend. You know, they're spending over 500.
But okay, well, yeah. I mean, I'm not in that realm of fundraising, so I trust you that there are hotly contested races. Now, here's the thing that people don't quite realize: you don't have to match your opponent 1-to-1 on fundraising, but you do need to get, you know, to 25, 30, 40, 50% in order to make a win on a tightly contested race. So, you know, if they're spending 500, you can still win with 250,000, because the first thing you do in politics when you have money is you waste some. So these candidates with a lot of money, they waste a lot of money. You just need to be more frugal. Use your money better. Have it highly targeted.
Can I add to that?
Yes, sir.
And I'll also have asked a question. The state Senate caucus says that right now it should be an 80-20 rule. 80% of your money should be going into voter contacts. That means direct mail, advertising, Facebook ads, whatever. But you're right that a lot of people will get, how should I say, lured by a consultant who promises that they'll be able to take this off their back, and they spend all their money on the consultant. So I hope that none of the candidates are doing that. It's a terrible thing to have to spend time doing this yourself, but if you're able to hoard the cash for the voter contact, it'll be worth your while. But my question to you, Ron, is this: where are the school board candidates going to get some national money to help them win? I mean, the conservative media is out there championing, you know, the revolution in Fairfax and Loudoun counties. And what I see is the school board candidates are struggling to find money. I'm not going to name any names, but there are a couple of people who have led the revolution, at least in Loudoun, who I think are out to promote themselves instead of helping these candidates raise money and win. So is there
Well,
any
I would
kind of
I would go to that. I would go to that PAC. That would be
What
the
PAC?
first place.
What
Save
PAC?
Save our kids PAC in Loudoun.
Well, okay, then let the school board member, if you have any national money to help these school board candidates, I would be very appreciative. I'm not asking for myself. I
Oh,
want
yeah,
to see-
no, I've
wanna
harbored
see-
the desire to
I
go
want
to
to
some
see, I
national
want to
group.
see a dent. I want to see a dent in the Fairfax School Board, and I think in Loudoun, they need to take over the whole school board, given what's happened up there. So how do you do that? Get over that Democratic mound without cash. So if there's anything you can do to help these, if you know, Save Our Kids, whatever, if you know of any PAC money or any national money to help these school board candidates, that would be great.
Well, there are all kinds of national interest groups, and all of them, many of them have PACs. And I have in mind to approach a couple of them and say, hey, why don't you pony up $25,000? And this is just
Well, you got to name who they are, Ron. Tell the school board candidates, not me.
No. I'm talking about, I'm not going to tell who I'm approaching before I approach them. But my intention is to reach out to some national groups and say, can you devote $25,000 of your PAC money to these local school boards in Fairfax County that have a vital national interest? That the focus is going to be on us in Loudoun County, Fairfax County. And so my hope is to be able to find a pot of money someplace. Now, maybe I'm just dreaming, because I haven't succeeded in it yet. And
okay, well then, whatever.
well,
but,
no, this is just a goal,
Well, but that's fine. That's fine, Ron. But I think the school board candidates here in Fairfax County need some cash, and it's got to come from elsewhere. This one guy who's running for re-election against Tony Savio has raised like $250,000 from across the country from gay rights activists. So, you know, how's Tony going to counter that unless he has some big money behind him?
Well, if I were a candidate, I would be approaching Virginia PACs. You can look them up on the Virginia Public Access Project as to who donates to things like this. I mean, you should be spending a lot of time on Virginia Public Access Project so that you can get your targeting for funding.
Hey, can I chime in on that?
Please
Here's
do.
the problem that I'm seeing. So I'm spending a lot of time trying to get out into the network and got my team going to that. And so when we start saying it, and I actually have a full-time job. So when we start saying that I need to start researching all this and go find these names and everything, go approach them, why isn't the Fairfax RSC just saying, hey, these are the names of the people, these are the ones that are willing to go, start making your contacts with them. It's like there's a lot of searching we got to do. And I'm not a politician. It's the first time going through this, but it's kind of like you get the support to a certain point, and then we're told, go find these things. It's out there. We know they're out there. Just go find it. And then we're spending our times, searching through the internet, trying to figure this out. And a lot of us, like myself, I mean, I have a full-time job right now. It's 3:00 for me right now. I'm in, overseas with a client because I have to work, and initially, I'm providing loans towards my campaign to get it going. But like they said, I'm going up against $250,000 and the money's still coming in. So on that side, so I understand when everyone's saying, go find it, it's out to go find these PACs. I don't know where they're at. And saying go through a website to go look for these things. I'm running into a situation where I just don't have time in a day. If I'm going to be researching where these places are, that means either I'm not working, which I have to work, or B, I'm taking time away from actual going out there campaigning and trying to get volunteers out.
Anthony, I have an answer for you. Fairfax County Committee is not set up, is not a slush fund. It does not have a lot of big donors itself. We get a lot of small donors. We have some big donors, but with small donors. And
No, I'm not talking the slush fund, but we're saying that these are the areas you need to go to try
Well,
to get these things. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not asking for that. Go
let me
ahead.
answer your question. So, do you have a kitchen cabinet?
You got to use regular layman's term. I don't know what that means.
I'm sorry. Do you have a
a couple of
group
people who are
of,
informally advising you, like volunteers?
I have initial volunteers. Yes.
okay, in other words, what you want to do is have your team have a fundraising committee. In other words, not just Anthony. You have people that have time to sit on the computer in the evenings, and they're not working necessarily, they're retired, or they're a housewife or whatever. Some people have some of your volunteers have some time to sit there and research the donors for you. You don't have to do everything yourself.
Well,
But
so initially, right now, everyone that's helping me out have jobs, and
okay,
so it's all coming together, and I'm pulling people to ask them to come help and things like that. But it just seems like here's my example. Okay, I've been engaged with a lot of Democrats, and they got a machine, not just a war machine of money coming in, but they got a machine of support, of endless support, a support network that I just don't see we have a strong support network. And we're kind of just put out there and say, here's the direction you need to go into, go at it, and we'll give you some ideas, go raise money and we'll figure it out. And that's how I've been feeling. It's like kind of figure it out. And hey, it's fine. It is what it is. But if we want to crack this egg here in Fairfax, we have to create the same type of model they have. And they have a huge network. And the network extends just outside of Fairfax County, extends far beyond into the West Coast. That things are coming in. And I'm not talking about just money coming in, but just the resources of this is where, these are the donors out here. These are the ones that are friendly to conservatives. This is the point of contact. Things like that. I mean, have we not developed that in the RC?
I think there's this thing called the 1776 Project, but they may be one of these self-serving organizations that raises money for itself. But I can tell you this right now, if we don't make a dent in the school board races here, and if we don't win a majority in Loudoun County, then this whole revolution is dead. But if we were to, but the conservative movement nationally to be focusing on those two counties, and if there are any others this year, because this is the year when there's only races in New Jersey and Virginia and Kentucky. And if there's anything going on in New Jersey, they should be helping those folks too. And that way that'll start the spark. And then people will look at you candidates as models for getting stuff done in those states next year when they have those elections. And I don't understand why these national conservatives are not doing this. I don't understand it. They're letting you guys out there with, to fight for yourselves. It's very difficult to raise money in a school board race. As Ron said, there's no zoning issues you guys have to deal with. And, maybe there's some folks in the FCRC who can make those connections with some of those conservative groups and say, or maybe all you candidates just ask for. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I get too passionate about this subject. So
Look, I get it. Can anybody just real quick? Can anybody pipe up and say if they've gone on any of the resources that we provided of, hey, here are fundraising organizations to go to as a candidate? Has anybody contacted them, talked to them? Okay. Are there decent pricing models that they've provided to you? Because I just want to kind of lay it all out there. Like Ron said, what you're going to get here inside the county, or generally speaking, you're going to get people who are willing to donate some time or they're willing to be small dollar donors. I mean, I know saying, hey, go look in VPAP is frustrating, but it's a very intuitive website. You literally go in there and you click on the button that says money. Then you can click through and you can sort it by top donations, whatever. I understand everyone's frustrated because they have jobs, they've got day jobs. So does everybody else that's in the FCRC. So the people that have dedicated time to do this are professional fundraisers. And there are organizations out there that will do this. Then they're either going to take a percentage of the money that they're pulling in to pay for their services, or they're going to ask for some money up front to get it started. And then generally, I'll tell you honestly, to get started, it's probably going to be $5,000 probably to do an initial fundraising campaign that's run by a decent ad shop. And you're probably going to make, you might make a couple $1,000s off of it. And then you're going to be able to take that and reinvest it and continue to move forward, whether that's through direct mail or high value donor list that you're using with phone banking. But there are companies out there that will link you up specifically with high value donor lists, give you times to call them, and then turn you loose to call and make your personal pitch and make your ask.
Nicholas, I'd like to throw some water on that. The idea that you can have someone else do your fundraising initially when you have almost no money, and I mean no money is in less than $5,000. It is not a good idea for any of the school board candidates to hire to try to do direct mail. There's probably no one on this call that has the number of donors that you need to make direct mail effective. You need at least 300 individual recent donors to do any kind of direct mail. And if you have 300 individual donors, your direct mail campaign is on your kitchen table like Cassandra did. And that for her was very, very helpful. And so it is a lot of work, and it is a pain in the butt, and it is uncomfortable. And you don't want to say the kind of things that you want to say, but you need to say to raise money. But the point is that the world wants to see that you really, really want it. And as I said, if I were running for office, okay, I would reckon that I would raise $10,000 in the first 30 days, maybe 15,000. And I'm not an expert at fundraising. I'm not really an expert at that kind of fundraising. But it's all about finding the people that write checks and are inclined to donate to you and making the ask personally. It's much more personal than everyone's making out, well, I'll go to a PAC or this or that. Yeah, I think I could get some PACs to donate to me, but my first actual go is going to be to my personal list of people I've known all my life, my high school alumni association. I don't have a college network, but I have my high school alumni, and just be really create a I would really create a fundraising committee of your volunteers who can take some time to help you develop the names that you make the asks for. So the way the big donors are funny, they don't want to have lonely money. They don't want to be your only donor. They want you to have some skin in the game, and they want to have a lot of other people donating to you too. And you might find a donor that's willing to do a match, which say up to $1,000, they'll donate $1,000 matching other people's money. Then you can run around with the match campaign. And possibly we are over time. if anyone, feel free to call me. My phone number is 703-939-5896. My email is ron@ronaldwilcox.com. And I'll respond pretty promptly if you email me, but phone call is great for me. I am often up late at night, and you're a busy person. So I take calls between 9 p.m. and midnight, because as candidates, you want to be making your phone calls to get out the vote calls up until 9 o'clock. And then after that, you do your campaign work between 9 and midnight. And then you get up at 6 a.m. and do it all over again, right? So
No, you have a job. I have a job. I can't do that. I have to sleep. I
okay,
mean,
so
that's what I'm